Greetings and welcome to another episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. I'm your host, Scott, and of course, with me as always is my fabulous co-host, Caleb. Caleb, how are you tonight?
Doing great. I'm not texting my parents right now. Not at all. Nope.
Why would you do that late on a Tuesday night or whatever
They're
night it is?
out of town, or they're travelers. They're world travelers. They're
They
like
miss
somewhere.
you. That's cute.
Yeah, they
Well,
took off.
So we're, of course, back to talk about the experience growing up as youth group kids in the 90s and how that has shaped our adult lives. We'll talk to our old friends about their faith journey spanning from the 90s to today and discuss current cultural topics through the lens of someone who grew up during that era. Caleb, we don't have a guest today, but we decided we're going to talk about some of the questions that we ask other people, and you and I will answer those. Back and forth here. Part of the reason is that we want to keep content coming out and keep people interested as we are working on multiple interviews that are actually turned out to be somewhat lengthy. And so we want to do justice to edit those and make sure we get all the good parts of those interviews in. So in the meantime, Caleb and I are going to interview each other a little bit. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yeah, this really is to save my bacon. We got some really good interviews. I think you're right. You nailed it. But they were long, and trying to figure out how to divide them up and get them all out. I think they'll be really great. But I wanted something that we could potentially produce a little quicker, that keeps the content coming out, that keeps the flow of the show going, but also may not take me a week to edit. And I can do something a little quicker. So this is a bit of save Caleb, who went on vacation and got really behind on stuff going on.
How dare you go on vacation and not fulfill your volunteer duties?
Well, the real problem, it's not just this, is I got behind on my music show, so I'm trying to balance two things.
That's what I always hear from you. I got this other show on the side.
I know.
I gotta pay attention to that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry.
I see how it is.
I'm unpaid for that one too.
We really should figure this out, dude.
I know I should.
No, so we'll make these episodes a little shorter. Maybe not at this point. We're rambling on during the intro. But we'll make these episodes shorter, and the audience will tell. We can see the numbers. If if we only get a few plays on these, we'll know nobody wants to hear Scott and Caleb any more than they possibly have to. Find some other people to talk to, please. So
yeah, exactly.
I expect these to be very, very low. So Caleb, please feel free to say whatever you'd like.
Well, this also implores somebody who's listening, who's like, oh my gosh, they really do need people to interview. Okay, I'll be on the show.
I'll do it, finally. I need to save these chumps from their misery.
Exactly.
This is brutal. So
brutal.
Just can't listen anymore to these guys. I got to jump in and help.
I want to break in and quickly remind everyone that the views and opinions expressed on this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s may not be held by or even approved of by everyone appearing on this episode. One of the goals of this show is to give everyone a safe space to share their opinions and thoughts on deeply personal matters of faith. We are not looking to start an argument, but instead we want to let people share how they feel. During our interviews and discussions, we may not represent every point of view on a given subject, and we understand that this may be frustrating at times, but it is the nature of a podcast discussion with a limited amount of time. We also know and want to acknowledge that our memories of events that happened 25 to 30 years ago may not be 100% accurate. We assume everyone's best intentions as they share how they remember the experience of their youth. Now, back to the show.
All right, so Caleb, my question to you that I pick out from the list, I suppose we should say from the list to the listener out there, we do send the people we interview a list of questions just as preparation. That obviously leads to a better conversation. So Caleb and I are going to pick from our list here and ask each other the questions. So Caleb, I'm going to summarize a few questions into one and then ask a specific one from the list. Real quick, summarize your background. Did you grow up in a Christian home? How did you come to Five Oaks? And then the question specifically is, what are your most vivid memories from youth group, or what are some teaching moments that are still with you today?
Okay. So yeah, I raised in a Christian home. My parents were, I was going to church from the day I was born, I believe. The real claim to fame is at one point we were in John Piper's Bible study at one point when my parents went to Bethlehem Baptist. Long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
You name dropper.
Yeah, name dropper. That's me. And then we moved out to Woodbury, where Five Oaks is. We had been at an Alliance church that eventually, Christian Missionary Alliance Church, that folded. And that's when a large number of us from that Christian Missionary Alliance Church went over to Five Oaks and joined there. So that was when I joined. I think I figured it was about seventh grade that I joined the youth group. I think I was before John. In fact, I know it was before John was there, and then he was hired shortly after, and that's kind of when the youth group exploded. So I was there from the beginning of the John portion of the youth group.
Great. Thank you for the summary of your background. So yeah, what are some of those memories or teachings that stay with you today?
Yeah, so I'm going to do the teaching one first. So the teaching thing that is probably sticks with me the most is, I would say the most unchanged for me is still a lot of the core tenets, right? That, Jesus forgives the sinner and welcomes the sinner home. I mean, that is it. And I know this is going to be this is why I started with this. This is the most boring answer in the world. Like, that's probably the thing that's most unchanged. And I do feel like that was something that was hit on. We've talked about this, that we didn't get a lot of I don't think we got a lot of the extracurricular stuff of, there was some morality stuff going on. There was some of that cultural thing, but I don't think it was a super heavy handed. We've talked about that we think we kind of potentially dodged a little bit of a bullet, and it wasn't something that was, really, really prominent. And I think that is something that definitely stands out. And I think probably something that has been a loss for me is I don't feel like I have a strong Christian community now. We've moved churches a lot in the last couple of years, and that's something that I occasionally mourn. And I think that is something that is, I'm not looking to go back to youth group days by any means, but that community was so strong. And I've had other moments in my Christian walk where I've had that strong community. And so I think that's something that still stands out as it's not necessarily a teaching, but kind of a theme from that youth group experience that really is stuck with me, that even though I'm a bit of an introvert, I really long for that community. And it's been tough to find it as an adult. And that's kind of stood out to me as well.
Great. No, that's an honest answer. Thank you. I would say, in answer to the question, those two questions, I grew up in what I would call a nominally Christian home, although my parents did bring us to church. We did move overseas when I was 9. We moved back when I was 14. It was very difficult to find a church that kids would enjoy overseas in 1989. So my parents absolutely did their best. We came back, went to Lutheran church, but through our mutual friend Ryan, I got introduced to Five Oaks, and then became a part of Five Oaks almost, well, not immediately, but very, very soon after moving back in 94, because of course it was the Sunshine Music Festival that brought me in. And if I moved back on July 2nd of 94, that Sunshine Music Festival was not soon thereafter, because there weren't that many weeks left of summer. So I was your very clear-cut example of, hey, invite your friends to youth group.
Yeah.
Hey, it worked for me, I guess. So vivid memories and teachings from youth group. I think of a tweet that one of our mutual acquaintances on Twitter sent out today, which was, hey, I realize that I don't text my friends from high school, but I do text and keep in communication with my friends from youth group.
Yeah.
Does anybody else out there have the same experience, and why? And I was like, dude, my friends in high school were my friends in youth group. What are you talking about? I literally cannot make a separation at all.
Yeah.
And I don't see it in my own kid right now, and maybe it continues, but did we have other friends? Did I have other friends? I don't think so. Maybe randomly, but I definitely was not hanging out with them. I just know, especially once I got like a driver's license, like I'm doing everything that I can to hang out specifically with you, Bill, and with Mike, and then others absolutely as they came along. In fact, I believe one of my wife's first interactions with all of you is like, "Hey, I'm back from college. I know this pretty girl. She's gonna come with." And everyone was like, "Woohoo! Bring her in!"
Right.
And it was just a big, community that way. But I never thought of hanging out with anyone else. So I think back to some of the important things that we did, like felt really special with all you guys doing different types of service work. Like, hey, we're accomplishing something together. And then I guess I just have to say, another memory I have is like being pushed in many ways as a leader, particularly of like, how crazy can you be?
Yeah.
Like,
yep.
I was put in charge of junior high youth group for at least a year, if not two. And so it was like, dude, you got to be as crazy as possible to connect with these kids. That farmhouse, man, that was a vivid memory for us. That was super unique. Before the church building was there, if we were meeting, we were in that farmhouse and we were all corralled into that lower level. You had the foosball machine on in one little offshoot room. And then we would just gather on old couches, like not old couches that someone had donated to a church building, like old farmhouse couches just there. So it really felt like a community that was your own.
Yep. And I think that is my vivid memories are all those things. It's those, you playing foosball, after church, hanging out in the barn. I remember we always we'd go out to the barn occasionally and hang out there. But like, yeah, it was the hanging out and, the going to Sunshine, those sorts of things. Those are my vivid memories. And they're all community based. I mean, it's all about like the interactions with other people. And I think that's what that is. That's absolutely what it is. It's those interactions and those friendships and, just all the different things. I know I mentioned it on one episode, but like, yeah, it centered around a lot of those events and, going to Dawson McAllister and running in, super early to try and get seats together and all those things. Those are the things I remember. It was always fun to be selected as part of that group that went super early before everybody else. And yeah, it's been pretty fun to kind of relive some of those things, but there's a number of those things that are just clear as a whistle to me, and or I don't know if that's the phrase, but just clear in my mind right. about what we did and how we hung out and that sort of thing. So
I would say teaching moments for me, I don't know why this one sticks with me. I literally don't know why. I just remember John talking about the end times, and we said it in previous episodes where, he would communicate that he believes that Jesus is coming back in his lifetime. John's still around, so that's still an option.
Sure.
It could still happen. But I do remember those teachings being like, well, did you know that the book of Revelation says there will be earthquakes in the end times? And the number of earthquakes now compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago is double or triple. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
No way. Now that might just be what people call climate change. But it's just like, it stuck with me. It stuck with me so hard that like, we're convinced that this is it.
Yeah.
Right? Not in a culty way where like, hey, we're going to leave on some spaceship. It was just like, hey, this is it, guys.
Yeah.
And there were those teachings that communicated such a important emphasis on not only making sure you're right with God, but other people that are right with God.
One more vivid memory that I think is fun is I do remember John would get those tapes that had like Christian music videos, and he would play those and we'd talk about the song. That's another one that I vividly remember because there's two things that stand out about that. One is that we didn't have a musician. Like that is, you're right. It was couches in a room or it was at somebody's house. So we didn't have live music. And we've talked about that a number of times, but it wasn't just that it was like he was playing a song. A lot of times he was popping in a VHS tape and then he'd play the video for Jesus Freak or some Jeff Moore in the Distance or Petra song. And then we'd talk about that before we went into our lesson. So that's another one that I vividly remember. And I remember when Five Iron came on one of those, I was so excited. I was like, yeah, a Flowery song is here.
I will talk about this song forever. Thanks for asking, John.
So that's another really vivid memory of mine.
Dude, I forgot about those videotapes. You know what those videotapes were? Like, those were record label promotional tapes that we would pop in at the bookstore. And, like, who all out there, raise your hand, remembers walking into a Christian bookstore and having, like, screens up where they're playing videos, and it was either a music video or, like, Veggie Tales. And that was where those were from, is that there was a side of that produced Christian music videos. I totally forgot about that.
Yep. And I think he got him as, because I think there would be curriculum with him too. Like, he got him as some sort of thing, because I swear that was what it was. It was not just like, it was a record company that had realized there was a value in selling it to churches for their youth group stuff. Because then I think they'd get all sorts of other random things, like they'd get posters with them. Because I remember that we had random posters around and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I remember those VHS tapes, and he'd pop them in, and we'd watch those videos.
Dude, like, it was just a burgeoning, I don't use this term like in a negative fashion, but the evangelical scene was like burgeoning in terms of just like a business or an industry.
Yeah.
Not to say that it was an end to a means of just making money. It wasn't, but they were figuring out like, wow, there's a huge audience here, and we can start to distribute this stuff a little bit more widely.
Yeah.
But yes, John, thank you for the good times, including the videotapes. They made a difference.
We're all here. We better put on Flood.
Flood was played multiple times. It was on every best of album of the 90s. So
I swear I remember walking around Sunshine, and
absolutely
we'd hear it all the time in the merch building, and
we
just became our joke.
We had some like janky video camera that we made a video with, and we went around and we made that joke for like 10 minutes. We just point the video camera at like the corner of the auditorium where had like the music store where you could go buy CDs. We'd be like, oh, a bunch of Christians there could play Flood, and then stop, and then we'd record like the t-shirt store. We'd be like, oh, a bunch of Christians there should play Flood. That's absolutely on tape somewhere. Thank God it's not on YouTube and never will be.
Do you remember the "We'll Do Silly Tricks for Food"?
Oh my gosh. Let's talk about dropping phrases and having a switch flip in my brain.
Right at the end of the show too. Sorry about that.
Oh,
that sounds like a whole other. How do we work that into another episode?
You're gonna have to keep jogging my memory, but I do absolutely remember that.
I got the picture.
That sign.
I got the picture in my room still or in this room here somewhere.
We are going to put that up for this episode.
Oh boy,
on Twitter.
No pressure, Caleb. Better find that picture.
You better not be lying to me.
The joke was we were sitting in the back of a truck in the parking lot at Sunshine, and we had a sign that said, "We'll do silly tricks for food." Instead of watching music, we were hanging out in the parking lot. I don't know, weird. But we sat there for quite a while.
Maybe we were too snotty to entertain new music. We were just like, oh, found the bands we did. We're going to go hang.
I'm not going to go watch those. I'm not going to go watch Out of Eden.
Those indie bands.
All right.
Excellent. Caleb, thanks for your time tonight. Appreciate the question. And thank you all for listening.
You came up with the question.
Yeah, thanks to me for the question. That was a great question.
Great question.
Thanks, Scott. You're the best. Thanks for listening. Talk soon. See ya.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought about this episode or any of our other shows. We hope you like these kind of little mini episodes. Again, just trying to find a way to keep content coming and keep things coming out. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can find us at the handle @SurvivedYG. You can also email the show at isurvivedyouthgroup@gmail.com. If you're interested in being on the show, please find a way to connect with us through one of those things, whether it's Twitter or the email address. Again, you don't necessarily have to have attended the youth group we did, but if you have a 90s youth group experience or a 2000 youth group experience that you think would be interesting to share, we'd love to hear it. We'd love to hear your story and how that youth group experience has impacted your life. Again, whether you're at the same church you were raised at or you've left the faith entirely, we'd love to hear your story. Please subscribe and share the podcast. If you're so inclined, leave a rating or review. If you enjoy this show, you might also enjoy the other podcast I do. It's a music podcast called the Album Anniversary Podcast. Over the last couple of years, I've researched and documented the release date of thousands of albums. Throughout the week, I post about them on social media. I've had a couple different formats of the show, but it's just an opportunity to sit down and talk about some of the albums that I've documented on my calendar and some of the albums that are special to me and other people that I have joined me on the show. Once again, that is the Album Anniversary Podcast. The music at the beginning and the end of this show is the instrumental version of the song Positive Charge by the artist Dread Pryor Roberts. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
We are, of course, here to talk about... I closed it. Hold on a second. Damn it. The document closed.
We're here to close documents while we're reading them.
All right. Count me in. Here we go.
3, 2, 1.